Welcome one, welcome all, and we've got another season of the Ferrari GT3 Challenge Series. We are back again. So just a bit of housekeeping and just a bit of introduction. If you're new here, if this is your first season doing the Ferrari Challenge, my name is Tim Perry. I make track guides each and every week for you. Now, I'm a top split racer. Our ratings normally fluctuates about 4K. Okay, I'm not a super alien. Okay, so I can't do the absolutely insane lap times, but I kind of feel like most of us can't do the things that they do anyway. So maybe this is slightly more relatable to you. And if you can get up to my standard, then you'll be racing in top split and having a good time. Okay, that's my idea of doing these track guides. Okay, so with that said, week one, and we are at a great track, Watkins Glen. It's actually one of my favourite tracks on the service. Absolutely brilliant, and it suits this car quite nicely. Track temps are quite high, but we don't have too many problems here. The Ferrari has a habit of coming round on the rear when the temps are really high, okay, but we don't really get that here too much, okay. And there's a few little tips and tricks I'll show you how you can cut that oversteer out. Right, coming down into turn one. Now, I've kept the brake bias at 53, okay. I think a lot of people don't like playing with it too much, and it actually feels okay here, so I've left it alone. Coming down into turn one, and we've got some nice little brake markers going on here, the 1, 2 and 300, okay, and we're looking at the 200. Now I hold it in 5th gear all the way, don't really see much point in changing. It kind of just hits the limiter as you're kind of get into the 300, so personally I just hold it in 5th, okay, and we're braking quite hard kind of as we're hitting the 200, okay, and we're down into 3rd gear. Now this is a corner where it's kind of like a 2-step curve, okay, and really we only want to have our wheels on the first one, okay. Again, you definitely do not want to be too much on this other raised one, okay. It will unsettle the car too much, okay. So we really turn it in, and there's quite a lot of camber here. Now I think I do just touch that second curb a little bit, okay, but it's a tiny amount and it's fine, okay. As I say, it's a very cambered corner, so you can carry a bit more speed, okay, than you think, and we can run the car right out wide here. Now before, this sort of stuff used to be off track. You used to have the middle of the car kind of where this drain is, but now this is fine, okay. We can run it all the way out here. So that is what we do, okay. Now I don't like running the car right down the middle, so the middle of the car down the middle of the curb, because it feels like it's just bottoming him out a little bit, which you don't really want. So either stay to the left or stay to the right of it. But I would say, really, if you're carrying a proper amount of speed through, then you want to be on the left-hand side of the curb, and then we just bring it over slowly, okay. And we're up the hill, and it's really important to get a good exit out of that corner, because it's going to cost you all the way up this hill, and it makes a massive difference, okay. Now here we come up to the hardest corner on the track, without doubt, okay. It's a risk and reward corner, this one, okay. So if you're struggling with it, my advice would be to use your active reset, okay. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's incredibly useful, okay. And you can set the active reset up just at the top of the hill there, and you can just practice this corner over and over and over again, okay? Because I guarantee you, even the best driver will take a few laps before they really nail in this corner, okay? So we're looking at this kind of exit road here, okay, where the 300 is, okay, and we're braking nice and steady. We're not slamming the brakes on too hard. The most important thing with this corner is getting the car settled, okay? It has to be settled. If you've got any sort of movement, it's not going to be good, okay? And what we're trying to do is try and get the wheel as straight as possible when we launch over this curb. Now, if you can't do it, and not everybody can, okay? Not everyone has the ability yet to put the car exactly where they want it every single time, then you will have to shed a lot more speed and just run your right-hand tyres over this bit here, okay? But the best line is to get it nice and close, okay? But the wheel needs to be really straight, okay, because the car will actually lift off the ground a little bit. Okay, so you can see it kind of bumps up and over. Okay, let's see if there's a TV camera that will show it. You see there, okay, like the car is pretty much just all four wheels off the ground, which means that when you land, if you've got the wheel turned at all, the car just grabs and goes into barrow. Okay, and I guarantee the first few times you do this, that will happen, and that's completely fine. Okay, don't worry about it. Don't just give up instantly. Okay, keep going, use your active reset and just get better at it. Okay, because it will save you a shed ton of time. Okay, so that's where we're looking at. There is even another line where you literally just brush this wall and you kind of avoid the whole jump completely. Okay, but that's like even harder and even more risky. Okay, so to run it through at full speed for you, okay, we're looking at 300. We're not braking too hard. Okay, turning in, and then we're straightening the wheel, so when we land, the wheel is perfectly straight. Okay, that's where we're landing. Okay, now when you brake and turn in, we're going down a gear, okay, into fourth, and we're looking at basically just catching this left hand side curb. Okay, so run it as close to this grass as possible, and we're back on the throttle before we hit the second apex. Okay, now this will depend a lot on how much speed you're able to pull through. Okay, you might even be able to, if you carry too much speed in, you might just have to drag the brake a little bit. Okay, if you carry not enough in, you can get back on the throttle much earlier. Okay, but I tend to just try and keep the car as settled as possible, so no brake and no throttle inputs. Okay, so we're up and over, no throttle, no brake, but we do go down the gear. Okay, so we're fifth gear. And in fact, I changed there, and then we're down into fourth. Okay, we run it nice and close to the apex, and we're back on the throttle. I like to get back on the throttle before this corner just to lift the nose slightly. Okay, and we're taking lots of curb on this one. Okay, you can take a bit of grass. It doesn't really affect the car too much. Now onto the carousel. Now this corner is quite important that you do move over to left a fair amount. Okay, this is exactly where I'd want to be. Okay, if you're too narrow, you have to slow down too much on the way in. But if you're too wide, the grip's not quite there. Okay, because it is a cambered corner, and it feels like you're doing a bit too much distance. Okay, so braking kind of where this, see the different type of tarmac here. Okay, you can also change up to fifth and then back down to fourth. I just hold it in fourth. Okay, but we're kind of train the braking, and then I look this little road here. Okay, that's kind of my reference, but you will need to feel the car and know when the right time is. Okay, sometimes you'll be going into here and you'll go like, yeah, I'm going too fast, so I'm going to accelerate after that road. And sometimes you'll be going to it and feeling like, oh, I've got a ton of grip here. It's really gripped up nice. I can get on the throttle sooner. So it's a feel thing. You can't just go into the corner and go, right, I'm going to get back on the throttle at this point every single time. Okay, maybe the pros can do that, okay, because they're carrying in exactly the same amount of speed every time. But for us, it's really important that we kind of feel the car and we know when the right time is. And even when we're back on the throttle, so we're, again, on the throttle by the access road this time, but we have to feel at this point, even though in theory we might be able to go flat, maybe we overheat the tyres a little bit on that corner before, and now we won't have the grip that we think. So you've got to make sure that you're ready to back off if you need to. Okay, so here I've had to back the throttle off a little bit because I'm drifting out a little bit too wide. Okay, maybe I've got on the throttle just a tiny bit too early, but we have to adapt to what the car is telling us. We can't just force the car to do exactly what's the right words? We can't always force the car to do exactly what we want. Sometimes we have to listen to the car. Okay, now this is a corner where you can lose a surprising amount of time because it's so cambered. You can get on the throttle so early, and a lot of people get on it quite late and they don't carry enough speed in. Okay, you see it's a lot. So although I'm using this kind of, I don't even know what that is, some weird concrete thing on the side of the road. Okay, like although I use that as kind of a reference point, we do brake before there. Okay, now this would be a corner where the rear can come round under braking, so you might want to then push the brake bias slightly further forward if you're having problems. Okay, the rest of the track, it's kind of all right though, so you'd have to change between the carousel and here, which is quite a short period of time, which is why I don't like to adjust the brake bias too much. And if you're battling with other cars and you're coming into this corner and you forget to make your brake bias change and you think the car's going to be more stable than it is, then that can be an issue as well. Okay, so on a hot lap, you can always be like, oh yeah, I'll brake bias forward, brake bias back, and whereas in a race situation, it's easy to forget and you can lose track of where you are with the brake bias. And the worst thing is coming to a corner and not knowing where the brake bias is set, okay, and having an unexpected result. So I would just perhaps be more cautious here and just keep the brake bias as it is, okay. So braking in, and we're going down 2 gears into third, okay, and it's really important to hook up this apex because you get the most amount of camber right at the apex, okay. So we're trading the brake in, trading it in, okay, and then once we're on hard because, as I say, it really grips up here. The Ferrari tends to have a problem with over rotating on throttle, but on this corner you won't get that, okay. So we're on the throttle really hard and we're round, okay. Now into this next corner, this is a very strange corner because it starts off a bit off camber and then kind of the camber picks up and then you're going to lose the camber a bit later on in the corner, okay. And you can carry a lot of speed in here, and it's kind of more important for this corner, whereas the last corner is really important to hit the apex. Here it's just about carrying the speed through, okay. So we're up into 5th, okay, down into 3rd. Now you can knock it down into 2nd here if you're struggling to rotate the car or you feel like the car's bogging. If you can't quite carry in the speed that I can, then coming down to 2nd gear is absolutely fine, but you will get a slight kick when you get back on the throttle, okay. So we're on the throttle really early here, okay. Train the braking and we're on the throttle super early. It's uphill, yeah, so we've got to make sure we're on the throttle as soon as possible, okay, and kind of as aggressively as possible, really. On the throttle, and you'll see here that we've got this kind of where the white line goes here, the grass actually comes out, yeah. So we want to use that, okay. Go use every inch of track. That's always very important, okay. We're coming down into our next braking zone. Now here we've got the 100 and the 200. Now in my mind, I'm braking between the 100 and the 200, okay. Whether that is actually the case, yeah, it is basically the case, okay. It's kind of as you pass the 200, I'm then braking down. This is a corner where you have to make sure the car is fully turned in before getting on throttle. So you can't get on the throttle probably as early as you would expect, okay. You have to wait perhaps just that fraction longer before getting on the throttle, otherwise you're going to drift out quite wide, okay. So turning in, okay. Again, this is a corner where you could grab 2nd if you're struggling with rotation, but again, you will get a bit more rotation on the rear once you get onto throttle, okay. So we're making sure we hook up the apex, and you see the car kind of drifts out wide, and we can use more than this, okay. So you can be right over here, okay, and sometimes I do, but it's sort of like because you're doing the extra distance, it's about the same, okay. But again, we're feeding the car, okay, we're getting back on throttle, and sometimes it will run wide onto there and sometimes it won't, okay. But the key is if you're on too early, I mean, it will go a long way wide, okay, onto the grass wide. So we do need to be patient. I was maybe a little bit too patient, but not massively, you know what I mean? Like it still drifts out quite wide here, okay. Okay, now this is a corner again where if you're struggling under braking, this will be one of those corners where you will struggle with the rear, okay. So again, if you're going to make a brake bias change, this is a corner where you may want to do it. But if you can nail the braking right, that can help you fire into this corner, okay. This is like an off camber corner, so there's a less grip than you would expect, okay. So we're training it in, okay. Then we're kind of feeding the throttle, okay. Now this is definitely a corner where the rear will try to rotate on you, okay. And in qualifying, you know, the tyres are starting to get up to temperature now, and you know the rears will start to give up on you slightly, okay. And in a race, you know, once you're like 4 or 5 laps in, the rear will start to come around a little bit. Okay, so we're very progressive on throttle. Okay, and even I have a little snap on there. Yeah, so I'm been very progressive, but the car kind of slides. And again, we've got this sort of like recess area, I suppose. Okay, so we want to be using all that, but be very careful not to run it onto the grass, because I mean, anyone who's done any sort of racing at Watkins Glen would have at some point come around the corner and there's a car on the inside where they've caught the grass and just spun it to the inside. Okay, it's so easy to do, so be very careful about that. Now, again, another fairly, it should be a straightforward corner, but it's not quite as straightforward as it looks. Okay, so as we're coming up here, we're in 5th. Okay, I would hold 5th gear here. Okay, just to stop any potential rear rotation. You don't want to take too much curb here. Okay, because again, we don't want to unsettle the car. Okay, so just running it, the left-hand side wheels just on the curb is fine. Now here, we used to get off track running too wide here, but they've basically taken that away. I think you can get a slowdown if you go insanely wide. Okay, but this is about where I'd like to be. You know, you want to be using all the track, and again, we're progressive on the throttle. Okay, and that was basically to counter the understeer. Okay, so there we are. We're just holding it on the curb. And again, another corner where we're focusing on exit more here. Okay, definitely don't want to brake too hard into here. Okay, it's sort of like a bit of a feather, just trailing it in. Okay, just getting the weight going forward. We're down a gear. I wouldn't go down to 3rd. I think 3rd's too short here. But again, if you can't quite carry the speed through, then 3rd could help you rotate the car a little bit more. Okay, and so as we're turning in, again, a lot of camber on the inside, so we want to make sure we get right inside. I probably could have got a little bit further over, to be fair, but it's really important to get on the throttle early, and we run it right out to the wall. Okay, again, you might start to pick up a bit of understeer in that corner, and you definitely want to then come off the throttle a little bit, because again, anyone who's been at Watkins Glen will have seen many people in this wall. Okay, and then it's just a straight run to the line. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you. Okay, so final bit of housekeeping. I do now have a Garage 61 team, so you can join that completely free of charge. The whole software is completely free. Okay, links are in my Discord. Okay, I will put the Discord server in the description. Okay, so basically what will happen then is that once you join the team, again, sign up completely free, you can then see my telemetry against your telemetry. Okay, and then you can ask questions on the Discord about how to get better at different corners. Okay, and you can compare like my lap times to your lap times, and every single sector, every single corner, and just loads of information on there about that. So that's a little addition to this season. I wish you luck in your first week. Hopefully it goes well for you. I should be doing some races this season, so they should get uploaded later on in the week. I'm also doing a F4 track guide. Okay, so that will be up probably the day after this one goes up. And again, might be doing some races with that. So that should be interesting, because that's a completely different car and a different way of driving. So I will see you all next week.